of great content to get to. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for coming to our first week of the Small Business Summit. I am so thrilled for these sets of events. Our first time going through everything and bringing on some fantastic speakers to talk to you about really taking that small business from an income source to a true asset, benefiting your family and benefiting yourself, of course, for all the hard work that you do. So let's start with why are we here, right? So with the average small business owner just making over $70,000, there are lots of entrepreneurs that feel like they have limited options financially or that they're trapped in their obligations, right? So there's a lot of small businesses bringing in a paycheck, paying for their monthly expenses, waiting for the next paycheck, paying for their monthly expenses, and not really finding that financial freedom that they're really looking for from their business, or that time freedom, or right, the protection for their family. So if you're a business owner, you probably started your business because you have a passion, you have a mission to help somebody, right? Not necessarily because you like all the paperwork that comes with being a business owner, or helping your employees, or looking over all the legal ramifications, right? You started your business because you have a passion and a mission. And so having people that can come help support that is so vital. Running a business is really hard. It's time consuming, and it can really be lonely for business owners. I hear that for solopreneurs in general. So how can we set up our businesses to truly provide and protect ourselves and our family for the long haul, right? So there are some real tangible tips and strategies that we're going to go over the next 8 weeks to talk about how we can really set up our business structure to help provide for us and take care of us. And partner with the right people is the way that we can get started doing that. So this whole idea of the summit was brought together by this concept of a sphere of influence, right? So I'm a business owner. I own my company. I also run a second company. And what I realized is, like I said, being a business owner can be lonely. So here you are at the center of your business. You're the one coming up with all the ideas, servicing all the clients, bringing on new employees. Especially in those first years, you're doing all the heavy lifting and wearing a lot of hats. So what I've really found to be effective is bringing on those business partners that you really trust and that have experience in their various fields, and bringing on experts who can bring advice and pieces of wisdom and knowledge from their experience to really enhance your business. So these are all the different people that are going to be speaking throughout the 8 weeks. This is the sphere of influence that we're bringing to your doorstep so that you can hear from all these different professionals and really learn from their expertise and learn from their experience and bring on the pieces that you need to maybe enhance your business and take it to the next level. So, you know, on the finance side, health insurance for your family, business consulting, business insurance, marketing, right? Personal insurance, all these different things are really vital to get your business thriving, especially when you're self-employed. So these are all the people we're bringing to your doorstep. So of course, who am I? I'm sure most of you on the call know this, but I'm Abby Vick. I'm the founder and the CEO of Paradigm Money Management. So I'm a financial advisor, financial planner. And I mostly work with small business owners. So that's really where this idea stemmed from, was hearing feedback from small business owners, from self-employed people who are really feeling alone. Like, I don't know how to expand my business. I don't know how to make more money. I'm not sure my family is fully protected. I don't know all the options that are available to self-employed people. And so that's where we brought this idea from. I mostly work with Gen X or millennials. Mostly I work with women, and there's some LGBTQ community that we're bringing in as well. The basis of my business, the basis of Paradigm, is that I believe that everyone deserves access to financial planning. It's so complicated, it's so hard to do it on your own. And we need to have access to financial planning for everyone at every income level. And so these kinds of opportunities where you can come and engage with us, ask questions, hear from experts, this is really where we're trying to engage you for free or for very low expense, and you can really see what you need for your business and then engage the experts to be able to make those changes. So you really didn't come today to listen to me talk. Fortunately for you, we have two fantastic guest speakers who are on the line with us. So Kimberly and Izzy are going to be talking to you about their different expertises. I'm going to let them introduce themselves more officially. But just to introduce the topic, today we are talking about treating your business as an asset, not just an income source. And the first step, the foundation, the basis to getting that going, that trajectory going for your business, is the business creation process. So we brought on Kimberly, who is a business consultant, and Izzy, who's an attorney, to talk to you about their different perspectives on how to get this done, how to make the right decisions to do it, and hopefully answer some of your questions on what to do on the next step. So I'm going to back up here and let you guys take over because I'm so excited to learn myself. Thank you.
Fantastic. My name is Kimberly Bogus, as Abby said, and I am a business consultant. And I had worked in corporate America for many years, and I have a real passion for working with entrepreneurs and business owners. Having worked for corporate America, having owned my own business, I know how important it is to control your own destiny, but also how many hats you wear. So that is really where my passion is, of helping entrepreneurs and small business owners either get started or just help them make sure that they have a solid infrastructure so that they can have success. How about you, Izzy?
So my name is Izzy Etnikoff, and I'm a personal injury attorney. I also help clients with business matters, and I've done quite a bit of work in that area over the years. So I am a lawyer, but I'm also a small business owner. And so, a lot of the issues that entrepreneurs and small business owners face are things that I experience personally. And so hopefully today we can talk about strategies, tips, secrets for people to really take advantage of all the benefits and protections that are out there. So when you start a business, when you start operating, you have to think about how are you going to do it? What entity are you going to use to operate your business? And so, Kimberly, maybe you can address, let's say somebody is a 1099 independent contractor and they want to establish a business entity. What are some of the considerations for that person, for that business owner?
Sure. Well, first and foremost is the legal liability that it can, having a business entity versus being a personal, having everything under your personal name does provide you some sort of protection for what happens with the business. It also helps you to, my CPA friends tell me that there are some tax savings, depending on your scenario, that they would benefit from, as well as it lessens the IRS, your audit risk. And the final point is really that it lends credibility, that if it's Flourish Business Services out there versus Kimberly Bogus, having that business entity, and as you're marketing and trying to build up your clientele, it just gives you a lot more credibility to it. So, Izzy, tell me about, if people get confused with sole proprietorship, can you tell me what exactly a sole proprietorship is? There's a lot of lingo thrown out there. And then what are some pitfalls of being a sole proprietor?
Sure. So to be a sole proprietor, you really don't have to do anything. You just have to operate a business in your own name. You don't even have to have like a special bank account or any kind of registration with, let's say, your state registrar, like in Arizona, it's the Arizona Corporation Commission or the Secretary of State. You really just have to operate a business in your own name. And it's something that I personally see from time to time, but I think it's a mistake. I don't see any reason for someone to operate a sole proprietorship unless it is, something really small and minor, like a lemonade stand on the corner. Otherwise, there is really no excuse for operating a sole proprietorship. Really, there is none. I only see drawbacks in doing that. And probably the most important thing, which Kimberly, you just mentioned, is the absence of any liability protection. So, for example, let's say you were operating a construction business or some other business where there's a risk of somebody getting hurt. Also, you could potentially do something that would cause damage or harm to a client. Okay, so if you're operating a sole proprietorship, you are personally responsible. And that means that if you cause someone damage that you then would have to pay for, you would have to be responsible to pay from your own bank account, potentially your own home, any other assets you have. So again, there are different ways out there to protect yourself and limit your liability. And so there's really no excuse for operating as a sole proprietorship.
Wow. So what are the different types of entities, and what would you recommend for someone who maybe is a 1099 person, right, independent contractor right now, that you would recommend for them to create a business entity?
Sure. So if you're operating alone, and it's just you as the owner with nobody else, you can't have a partnership. Okay, so a partnership, it requires a minimum of 2 people. The definition of a partnership is 2 people carrying on a business for profit. That is the most basic definition, and you don't really need anything more than that. So if you're operating alone, your choices are going to be opening a corporation or opening a limited liability company. And there are pros and cons depending on your situation, depending if there's multiple owners, depending on what your objectives are in the short, medium, and long term. You know, very popular is the S corporation, which stands for Small Business Corporation. Lots of people across the country operate through an S corporation. And if you like, I can talk more about that.
I would love to, because, you know, I have clients that they are not, they understand, or they've heard that there are some tax benefits to it, but they don't really know what all the pros and cons are of having the S Corp versus just an LLC, for instance.
Sure. So having an S Corp does require you to make a formal election with the IRS. It's Form 2553, and it has to be filed with the IRS. And you're basically telling them, please tax me, please tax my company as a S Corp. It's really designed, it's intended to be used by small business owners. The IRS limits an S Corp to 75 shareholders. A husband and wife are considered to be the same, like one shareholder. You can be a shareholder as an individual, if you're, let's say, operating within a trust. So a trust can be a shareholder, certain types of trusts, and also an estate. So it's got some flexibility there as far as ownership. Some other qualifications are that shareholder has to be a U.S. resident. The company has to be formed under the laws of one of the United States. Okay, so if you're in Arizona, it has to be set up under Arizona law. And it offers the same liability protection. You know, so if you are operating with an S Corp, really the shareholders are liable for the actions of the company only up to the value of their shares and not beyond that. So, you know, if the company has a certain value and it's really owned by one person, then the company would be liable only up until the value is exhausted and nothing beyond. So they wouldn't be able to come after you personally. Your personal assets would be protected. Your house, your home, your car, your vacation house, your boat, all of that would be separate and protected and set aside, meaning only the company is going to be responsible to pay for anything. However, it should be noted, you know, banks, lenders know that. They know how the law operates, and so very often they will require the business owner to sign a guarantee, a personal guarantee, which for the purposes of that loan and only that loan, they would ask you to be personally responsible. So that would be liability beyond the 4 corners of the company. But as far as anyone that you're doing business with, your clients, your customers, vendors, things like that, again, you'd benefit from that liability protection. So the tax benefit is really that the company is taxed as the same way an LLC or a partnership would be taxed. And we call that flow-through taxation. And what that means is the individual is taxed based on his personal circumstances or her personal circumstances. And there's not what we also call double taxation, because ordinarily a corporation is going to be taxed on the corporate activity. And then also when the corporation issues a dividend, so those dividends are going to be taxed against the receiver of that dividend. So the S corporation obviates that double taxation, and we maintain single taxation. So and that's how the IRS treats you. The other thing I just want to say is the S corp is limited to one class of stock. So it's not the kind of company you want to set up if you are looking for outside investors. So if you're looking to attract, other kinds of capital, investors, maybe to take you to the next level, you're going to have to convert into something else, because investors are not going to want to participate in a company that really has only one class of stock. And so that's what I would say is, those are the main points of operating through an S corporation. Those are the benefits, and it's available to everybody.
Fantastic. And there's a little bit with the S Corp, there's a little bit more record keeping. Is that correct? Because I know you need to file an annual report with the Arizona Corporation Commission. Is there a little bit more record keeping that you're aware of with an S Corp versus an LLC?
Yeah, that's true. So you do have to file your annual reports. You do have to have your annual meetings. You do have to keep your minutes. You do have to, in most cases, I would recommend having bylaws. And so there are more formalities involved in operating an S corporation. That is true. So, you compare that to, let's say, an LLC. An LLC does not have to file annual reports with the Corporation Commission. So, those are the formalities involved. So again, it's something that, you want to consider as far as what would be the right fit for you and your business.
Fantastic.
So,
and all good options. Just it's good to know the pros and cons of each.
So let me ask you, Kimberly, when you're assisting a client, let's say you are assisting them right from the start, you're helping them set up the corporation or partnership or company. So once that entity has been set up, what are the next steps? What do you recommend that the owner do next?
Sure. Once they are approved with the Arizona Corporation Commission or whatever state that they have decided to incorporate in, they'll want to obtain an EIN from the IRS. And basically that is just a social security number for your business. And you can do that online. You can, there's no cost to it, and you can get that right away. So you want to get started with that. You also want to get started right away with, once you have the EIN, of opening up a business banking account. Because as we've talked about, there are protections for individuals that have a business entity, but all of the business revenue and all of the business expenses need to come out of a business account. You certainly don't want to commingle funds or have any personal expenses, for instance, come out of your business account, or have business funds go into your personal checking account. So we want to go ahead and get your bank account started right away. And I also like to recommend that people try to get a credit card. Even if it's, some of the banks, even if it's a, $500 limit, it just starts to establish their business credit, which is really important for them to do right away. And then the next big picture thing that you want to think about is a business plan. And I know that sounds boring and it sounds scary, but it really, what the business plan is it helps map out where you want to go with your company. So it helps you set your goals. It really helps you to pinpoint who's your customer and how are you going to target that customer. So there's some marketing goals, there's financial goals involved with that as well. So the business plan you definitely need if you're going to try to get investors, or if you're going to try to get a loan. You have to have a business plan. Otherwise, you're not legally required to. But it's certainly it's your roadmap. And if you don't have if a company doesn't have a business plan, then they're just kind of winging it, and they're going to have a lot more success if they have that business plan. They also want to make sure that they have insurance, business insurance to cover whatever their profession or their business is, as well as make sure that they have the appropriate licenses. So say you are an entity that has a certain type of license, you'll want to make sure, and it was in your personal name, let's make sure that that gets into the business name now, so that the business holds the license that they need. So, and if anyone wants to, I do have a business plan template. So if you would like, you can let Abby know, and I'm happy to send that to you. And at least it walks you through the various steps, so it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
That is really good advice. Business plan is so important because it also provides you with a checklist to make sure that you are doing everything correctly and at the right time and in the right way, so that you don't make mistakes. And if you do make mistakes, the mistakes are done early, in the life of the business, and are likely to be a lot, less costly. And so, yeah, can't overemphasize the importance of that business plan. So,
and I love because it really helps you plan out, where you want to be in a year, where you want to be in 5 years. So it's a great planning tool.
So you mentioned, where you want to be in as far as the timeline. So when you're starting a business, do you recommend that clients ordinarily think about succession planning even right at the beginning?
I do, because it's really important for them to have an end game. And everybody, depending on the business, depending on each individual, it's going to be a little different. So for instance, if you are a hairstylist and you rent a station at a salon, but you're building your clientele, that's your business, but you are the business. And so your game plan might be that you are going to build your clientele, make as much money as you can, and at when you decide that you no longer want to do that, you're just going to wind the company down, and that is it. Whereas there are clients that they want to, say, build something that they can leave to their kids. And so you want to think about that differently if it's something that you want to have as a legacy. Now, I will say that if people are planning on that they talk to their children about it, or if their children are too young, that they're not disappointed if their children don't want to take over the family business, because that does happen. They might have other passions. But if that is the case, you could always have a key employee that you can mentor, that they could take over the day-to-day operations so that you would still own the business, but that you aren't having to work on the day-to-day. Or, of course, there is the option of you're building this to sell and that you want it to be an asset in your financial portfolio at a later date. So it's always good, and not that you can't change your mind, but right from the beginning, especially when you're doing your business plan and you're planning, your strategies are going to change based on what your end game is.
Yeah, that's really insightful. And for people that are just starting off, if they're able to have that mindset right from the beginning, they have the opportunity to create a lot of value for themselves. So I think that's just wonderful advice.
Thank you. So now, Izzy, from a legal perspective, why is it important to use the business name when they're marketing?
So when you are interacting with members of the public, like customers, clients, and vendors, it's really important for those people and other companies to understand and know who they are actually doing business with. And that's important because, when you choose to, let's say, buy something, a fabricated item, let's say you're, buying custom blinds or, some other product, you want to know who you're doing business with. You want to know, if there are any risks in doing business with this company, and you're able to look up the company and check them out. And so it's really important that you maintain consistency when you're doing business with other people. People need to know that they're not doing business with you personally. They're actually doing business with the company. and the company and the individual are separate. And that's really what we want to emphasize. So you want to maintain those protections. When you do business through your entity, you are protected as an individual, right? So we have something called the corporate veil. And basically the corporation or the limited liability company, those entities protect you. Like I said earlier, if something bad happens and the company is sued, the individual is not liable. The company is liable only up to whatever assets and value it has, right? So that's the principal reason why you really want to maintain separation and keep consistency with using the business name. The other thing is you want to avoid confusion, right? You don't want some of your customers to think they're doing business with you versus the company. And also it helps in obtaining bank accounts, lines of credit, access to capital. When you are consistently operating through your business, it really gives people an advantage as far as the protections and access to that capital.
That is great information, especially that consistency is key. And if they've worked so hard to build up this entity, for them to do something that would make them personally liable and pierce that corporate veil, so to speak, that would be unfortunate.
Yeah. You know, it's something that a lot of business owners are not aware of, but it's important to know right from the start. It's like, for example, probably the most common mistake business owners make is that they will use their own personal credit card for business expenses, or they will use a company credit card for personal expenses. So Kimberly mentioned that earlier, you know, that's kind of intermingling activities. You certainly don't want to commingle funds between yourself and the business. You want to keep separate ledgers, and you want to keep very clear records as far as, you know, what's what and who's doing what operations. And so it's really important to keep in mind that you want to treat your company as a separate entity. It's something different than yourself, and you really have to operate it that way. And if you do that, you'll maintain those protections.
That is fantastic. And there are ways that people need their money. They can take a distribution or take a draw, depending on what type of entity they have. But they certainly need to do it that way versus paying their personal bills out of the company. Great information.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe we can shift gears and talk a little bit about marketing. So I know, Kimberly, you're really an expert in this area. What type of marketing can business owners do on their own, and when should they seek professional assistance?
Well, it depends on a couple things. It depends on their skill set, and it also depends on the time that they're going to be, the time that they take to do that marketing versus where they could be spending their time generating revenue elsewhere. So for instance, myself, I am not great at graphics. So for me to create a flyer would take a very long time, and that's just not where I should be spending my time at. But there are some simple things like social media posts that you could do on your own, that's cost effective for you to do. Or if you want to do a blog, that certainly is something, because you know you're an expert in your field, and so you know the content, and so shouldn't take you long to write a blog. Or even creating a company page, whether it's a Pinterest or LinkedIn or Facebook or your Twitter or Instagram. Those are all things that you could do yourself that don't take a lot of time, and they're very easy to do. I would leave to the professionals things like designing a website, because there's more to a website than just making it pretty. There's some SEO content in there. There's keywords. The professionals know how to create a website that looks good on your mobile phone, how to set up the analytics for it. So things that, unless that's what you do professionally, I would leave that to the professionals. Graphics, designing a logo, even if you are the most amazing artist, the printers still need it in a vector format. And so if you create your own logo, you would not be able to hand that to a printer or a sign company the way it is. They would have to kind of recreate it into a format that is able to be printed. So logo graphics, I would leave that to professionals as well.
As far as the the consistency of the imaging, would you recommend that a business owner have like a similar theme when it comes to, let's say, a business card and a website and graphics, things like that? Or, is that something that people can have, different and basically choose the theme that they want for each one?
I would recommend that it's consistent because, again, you're branding, and so they want to be able to see, someone wants to be able to see a business card and a flyer and know that it's from the same company. At least the colors, your logo, you want to be consistent on. The general theme, I would highly recommend that it look the same for the consistency, the familiarity, and the top of mind awareness.
Okay. So, when it comes to financial goals, what are some of the things that you see business owners kind of forgetting or overlooking?
Sure. I think with all of us, the things that we are the most uncomfortable with are the things that we pay the least amount of attention to. And what the clients that I've worked with, the financial, that's not what their strength is. And so I see some of the same things. One of them is not knowing where the revenue is coming from. So either they don't know what the revenue is, or they don't know where it's coming from. So for instance, I had a dog, it was a dog groomer, and they did dog grooming, they did doggy daycare, they had accessories that they sold there, and they were just lumping the revenue into a big pot. So they didn't know how much they were generating of sales from, say, the accessories or the doggy daycare. They didn't know how much money they were generating from that. And so it's really hard for them to be able to plan and see what is successful and what isn't successful. What do they maybe need to tweak? Maybe they don't offer it anymore, or maybe they look at the pricing, or if it's an inventory thing, maybe they look at the product and come up with something that is a bigger seller. So just really not knowing where that revenue is coming from and not tracking it is a big challenge that I see with some businesses. Also not knowing what their expenses are. I had a client that I worked with, and they had mentioned that their overhead was about $10,000. And as we were starting to create a budget of what their overhead was, the expenses ended up being close to $25,000. And it was just some of the expenses that they, you forget about it. You're like, oh, I didn't think about, oh, I have that, credit card payment, or, oh, I forgot that I had, my internet service is that, or that I, have a CRM tech system that costs this much a month. And so it's really important for you to know what your expenses are, as well as managing each of those contracts that you have with the vendors, knowing when they end and knowing what your out clause is. Because there's nothing worse than thinking that you're going to cancel your cell phone service when it comes up for renewal, and then you come to find out that you needed to give a 90-day notice. So,
right.
So I think it's important for them to track that as well. Just like personal expenses, you really want to have a 3-month cushion in your bank account for business, or that should definitely be a goal that you have when you start your business, because you never know when the slow times are going to come. You never know when there's going to be a big expense, when you're going to have to shut your business down unexpectedly for a short period of time, which just happened to some business owners. And then it's also great to have that safety net for some cash flow. So if you have a business that has a product that you need to buy inventory that's tying up your cash until you sell that product, it's really important to have that cash flow and the cash that's there necessary, so that they can go ahead and run their business. I also think that sometimes we don't have goals that are realistic. So either we're not setting goals or they're not realistic. I had a client a dentist that I was working with, and they wanted to make $222,000 for next year. I'm like, that's fantastic. Where did you get that number from? Is it historic? Was it last year's revenue with an added percentage? They just liked the number, which is fine. But what I like to do with clients, and what I recommend that people do, if you have a goal in mind of a certain number, is that you back into that number. So what we did for that particular dentist is, how many cleanings do they need to do per month? How many cavities do they need to fill? How many teeth whitening kits did they need to sell? So when they started to put in their historical information as well as what they thought that they could sell, and then that will help you get to that number. Or so either you will see that one of two things, wow, that's not that hard to get to that number, or okay, maybe that number is not realistic, and come up with a more realistic financial goal as well. But you do need to, just instead of pulling a number out, I always recommend that people tie their product or service to that number so that they can see what they need to sell or service to make that number attainable for them. And the other thing, especially for someone that is used to getting a 1099 and now they're opening up their business entity, is putting aside money for taxes. No one likes to pay taxes, but we all owe taxes, and you just don't want to forget that you put aside money for the tax man.
Absolutely. Yeah, very important. I think everything you said is really, really great. The important thing that I would see very often is people's kind of failure to control their books, failure to control accounts, and control the company overall, as far as, just knowing what their numbers are and how they impact their, weekly and monthly operating budget. So, obviously there's a lot of uncertainty in a business, especially when you're starting off. But I feel like when you have good, tight controls over your numbers, you are able to alleviate a lot of that uncertainty. And, if you know exactly what you have to do and how to achieve it, how to reach those goals, then you have a plan, you have a roadmap on exactly how to achieve those kinds of things. So, yeah, really, really important advice.
Well, Izzy, as a business owner, not only do you have the financial part that you need to focus on, whether you have a professional do those services for you or not, but there are a lot of hats that business owners have to wear. And what are some ways that you value your time as a business owner?
Right. So, what people call the solopreneur, like you said, they are basically doing absolutely everything. And like you said, they're doing the marketing, they're doing the sales, they're doing the human resources, client management, they're doing administrative tasks, they're even taking out the garbage. And so it's really important to manage your time wisely, and to know how to spend your time. So personally, what I try to do as much as possible is delegate. I try to have others perform tasks so that I don't have to do them, so that I can spend my time in other ways that are going to be more valuable to my business. And so that's one of the secrets, I think, to becoming very successful is delegation. Sometimes it's hard. I would say for, solopreneurs, people that are starting off on their own, they find it very, very challenging to trust other people with important aspects of their business operation. They feel like they can't let go, and they're unable to delegate, either, as a psychological, emotional issue, or even from a practical standpoint. They have a hard time training other people to do the job right. And entrepreneurs feel like, I'm the only one that knows how to do this, and I'm the only one that knows how to do it right, and I can make sure that it's done right. And so, look, there's only 24 hours in the day, and there's only so much that you can do. And so, if you want to grow and expand beyond a certain point, delegation is going to become absolutely necessary. You can't do everything. So I personally am very generous with my time when it comes to my clients. So I will not limit the amount of time that I spend with my clients, advising them, helping them. It's something that I do not delegate. It's something that I know is really important to my business. And so it's really my focus. So, when it comes to assisting clients, that is really what I do. And that's where I will try to spend all my time and be very generous with it. Business owner has to understand where their time is most valuable and where they should really focus every day. even to have a daily plan of, what is the most important thing that I need to accomplish today? There are many things that you're going to have to do that day, but there's probably only one or two things that must be done that day and must be done by you. And so starting off your day, understanding what is it that you need to accomplish and how to get there, and not being interrupted, with phone calls and emails and, other distractions, because then you don't accomplish the absolutely essential or necessary things. Also, I try to use technology. We're, to a large extent, a virtual law firm. So we really leverage technology and try to have technology work for us. And we work through technology to make ourselves very efficient. So especially nowadays, I would recommend that entrepreneurs do research and find out if there are tools available to them, whether it's managing your calendar or a customer, CRM, customer relationship management tool. Those things can really boost the level of productivity for yourself and for your company. And then just identifying the kinds of things that, kind of suck your time without really giving you value, identifying those kinds of things and then avoiding them. So for example, if there's a client that wants, assistance with something and we know we're not able to help them, we're going to let them know that right away. And we're going to refer them to somebody that really can help them so that we don't get bogged down in things that we really don't have any business doing, right? So we're a personal injury law firm. That's really what we do. We specialize in that. We're very disciplined, staying within those parameters. And when people come to us for, let's say, trust and estates work, right, that's not something that we do. And so we pass that along. And so, again, if you're operating a business, it's important to focus on the things you do and do well. And the things that you don't do well, if you try to do them, it can be very costly to your business. And so you need to think carefully about whether you want to do it and if you want to avoid it, and still provide value to the client by helping them find a service provider that will be able to assist them.
Oh, that's great information, Izzy, and especially on the delegating. When I'm working with clients, sometimes I tell them they may not do it the way that you're going to do it, but it's okay as long as the end result is the same. It's okay to embrace that everybody does things a little differently. So I appreciate that sometimes it's hard to let go.
Yeah. So I'm sure you see this kinds of thing all the time. So what are your suggestions for clients that are really, that you feel like kind of, have hit a wall or hit a ceiling on their growth, and you see a lot of potential for them, but they're not really delegating or they're not really operating as efficiently as they should? How do you get them to kind of, spread their wings and take it to the next level?
Sure. Well, they're really kind of like to peel the onion back and see what it is that is limiting their productivity. But I will tell you, most of the time that we find that it is they are trying to do something because they don't feel like they can afford to pay a professional to do it. So they're going to do it themselves, yet they don't realize that it's taking them so much time that they're not being able to generate revenue. So for instance, if you get a new laptop for your business, and you're like, it's easy, I can set this up myself, I'm not going to pay a professional to do it, but it takes you 3 hours to do it, and you could have paid a professional $100 to set it up. You kind of need to think about, if you view your hourly rate more than $33 plus an hour, then it was probably better for you to pay that $100 so that 3 hours you could use to generate the revenue. And everyone loves to be so focused on the client and your customer, which is fantastic, because without the customers, we don't have businesses. And sometimes it's hard because you really have to look at, are certain customers profitable for you? And so for instance, if you're a massage therapist and you have a client that is constantly 30 minutes late, which is either messing up your schedule or they cancel at the last minute, and so you're out that revenue that you could have had if you had a paying client, it might be time to part ways and maybe have them find another massage therapist, versus continuing to have those clients or customers that really aren't respecting and valuing your time, and then it's not valuable for your own business.
What are some of the tools that you recommend your clients use to stay organized? There's a lot of choice out there, a lot of technology that people can use. So what are some of the things that are, less expensive and really provide those solopreneurs a lot of value?
And technology is wonderful if you, especially if you love it, and especially when it works, right? We love technology
Yeah.
when it works and hate it when it doesn't. But personally, I live by my calendar. That helps keep me organized. And there are so many cloud-based systems out there, such as Dropbox. So if you want to be able to have your files in a cloud somewhere that you can easily access them. Also, it's really easy to share large files with someone else. So that's one that Dropbox does have some free versions out there, depending on the amount of storage that you're using. But Dropbox is one of my favorite. Evernote also is a great to-do list. They can help you manage your tasks, that you can keep your notes all in one place. And that is that does not cost anything. Hootsuite. I don't know if you guys have tried Hootsuite yourself for social media postings, but Hootsuite, you can schedule your posting. So whether you want one post to go to all of your social media accounts or whether you're just scattering your postings, but you can schedule them. So, 10 o'clock at night, you want to go and schedule all the social media posts so that you don't have to think about it for the next week. You can do that at your own convenience, and then they get posted. There is a cost to Hootsuite, but it is a great way to stay organized. And then if you have inventory that you're selling, there's a product out there called goods order inventory. Sorry about that, tongue twister for me. And it helps you track what product you have when you sell it. That is a great inventory solution to help keep businesses organized. So, Izzy, if somebody wants to get a hold of you after this, how are they going to get a hold of you?
Sure. So they can call us at the office. We're happy to talk to people. Our number is 800-279-6331, 800-279-6331. And, if it's not the kind of thing that we do as a specialty, I know lots of lawyers and we make referrals every single day. We're helping people find exactly the right specialist for them. And then we have a website, which is ilylaw.com. And Kimberly, if people want to reach you and talk to you about engaging your services, how do they reach you?
Sure. My website is flourishbusinessservices.com, which, a little marketing tip, please don't make your website name that long. Mistake I made. But my phone number is 480-980-6066. And I do offer anyone a complimentary consultation. I just really have a love of working with business owners and entrepreneurs, and so happy to walk you through, have a conversation about where you are, and that is always a complimentary consultation first visit.
That's great. That's something I'm sure a lot of people appreciate having. I know that we could do a lot more, cover a lot more topics, but I know that Abby wanted to leave a few minutes for questions. And so maybe we can line up some of those questions and, help people move forward.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. Wow. I was taking notes over here. My page is full. So nice to have experts you can just absorb information from. It seems like the theme of today is when you're a sole proprietorship, you really need some protection, right? And so right now, today, we're talking about protection through the law, how you can legally separate yourself, take a little bit of distance from that business and get some protection. And then, of course, the theme of the summit is developing your asset. And you have to start here. That's why we started with these two phenomenal guests, is so that they could talk to us about how to start from the basics of developing your asset, just creating that business structure, something that works for your business, that makes sense. And these two people, Kimberly and Izzy, are the people to talk to about how to get that business structure, what would be the best for you. So here's a question. There was some change recently in Arizona, I think it was in 2019, that they're talking about in LLC. And I think you kind of brought it up with the corporate veil, but I think there's some language to be a little bit more specific on how to keep the corporate veil, and that a lot of people are taking advantage of that. So can you address that a little?
Sure. So that is true. The section that in Arizona revised statutes that deal with limited liability company really got an overhaul. And so it applies to many different aspects of operating that LLC. Very important are the changes that are implemented to an operating agreement. So I tell anyone who has their own company, if they're the only ones that are the owner, let's say it's a 100% member managed LLC, the operating agreement is not going to be essential. However, if there is more than one owner in this company, so let's say it is manager managed, and there are at least 2 different members or owners of the company, it is really critical to have an operating agreement. If you don't, then the default is going to be the rules, the parameters that are set up by Arizona statutes, and those statutes have changed, and the changes are significant. And so there are many different aspects that are affected as a result, including potentially the corporate veil. So, you know, if you are in business with somebody else, number one, you absolutely have to have an operating agreement in place at the beginning, and it has to be done properly by a lawyer. Okay, it's not something that you can do with, you know, Zoom Legal. It's not. It is very specific to Arizona, and it needs to be addressed right from the beginning, not only to protect yourself when it comes to other, you know, other third parties like customers and vendors and clients, but also governing your relationship with your business partner. You know, you and your partner need to know exactly where you're standing, and how you relate to each other, and how you resolve disputes. So you don't want the government to decide how, you know, different aspects of your company are going to operate. And so that's why you really need to have an operating agreement in place, so that you can really make sure and decide from the beginning exactly what you want.
Yeah, thank you so much for addressing that, because I think those changes really they were trying to make it more clear how these operations are to happen, how to set up the rules ahead of time, right? And so it is something we all need to be aware of. About succession plans, I'm so glad you guys addressed succession plans and like bringing that up as something you think about at the initial stages of developing your business. And I just wanted to, this is a comment coming from me, I just wanted to share a little bit that, you know, there are a lot of business owners that don't know what they want to do with their succession plan, or they're planning on using it for their retirement. That's how I see a lot of it. But then when we look through the business, they haven't set up the business to be sold. I mean, they haven't set it up as an asset to be sold. And so there really isn't a lot of value, or nearly as much value as they considered. But I kind of want to flip the script a little bit and say there are other pieces of your business that might have a lot of intrinsic value that you might not be considering, that could be sold off in the future, even pieces of it like intellectual property or client lists, some of your marketing materials, maybe you're writing a book. These kinds of things doesn't necessarily mean you have to sell the whole business or transfer it to someone else or figure out how that's going to all happen. But there are pieces of your business that are definitely valuable. You're putting a lot of time and effort into it. And those pieces maybe could be something profitable long-term, maybe as passive income for you, for yourself and your family. So I think that's all the questions I have. I want to be really conscious of time. So we have 3 more minutes if anyone wants to share anything else. Oh yeah, wait, one more. Gotcha, Tana. What if your S-Corp consists of a husband and wife? I also had this question, great reminder, Tana, about a partnership. Can you have a partnership with a husband and wife, or does it have to be 2 different people?
So when it comes to the IRS, many, if not most of the time, the IRS will treat husband and wife as a single entity. So to answer your question specifically, does the IRS consider a husband and wife to be a single unit for purposes of the S corporation? The answer is yes. They, unless they specifically do not want to be considered the same, and that's something, you got to talk to your accountant about. But generally speaking, yes, a shareholder, husband and wife, is going to be considered a single unit because they're going to be filing together. They're living in the same household. They are very likely taking all the same deductions, and they are paying the same taxes. And so to answer your question, yeah, husband and wife is, for purpose of the S corporation, treated as a single unit.
Great, thank you. Okay, I think that is all our questions. This is being recorded, so we'll send this out to everybody. If you have anything else, again, feel free to contact these two brilliant individuals for more help. This is just the first week of 8 of the business summit, and I'm so excited that you guys are here. So next week we're going to be covering debt and credit, so how your personal debt could take down your business, and so why it's important to address that. I think we kind of touched on that a little bit today, that the personal and the business, if we're intermingling all of those funds, right, it can have significant impact on your business. So we're going to address that head-on finances next week. And then you can see the rest of the agenda here. We'll keep putting it all over social media, so you can invite your friends. If you think anyone can learn from this, feel free to send the invitation as far and wide as you think would be helpful. We really want to bring experts to your front door to help you in your business. And if we can do anything to do that in the meantime, let us know. But until then, we will see you next week, June 11th at the same time at noon. And thank you so much, Kimberly and Izzy. Learned so much today. Thanks so much for your time. Bye, everybody.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.